When you think about a court, you probably think about judges, lawyers, and verdicts. But what's the most fundamental power a court even has? Well, it's the power to make people show up in the first place. Without that, the whole system just grinds to a halt. So, how do they actually do it? How do courts ensure you show up? And that's really the core question, isn't it? Because when a court tells you to appear, it's not exactly a polite request. It's not an invitation you can just decline. There's a whole system of escalating consequences designed for one thing: to compel attendance. We're going to break down exactly how it all works. I mean, think about it. A judge can issue orders and make rulings all day long, but if the people involved just decide to ignore them, well, then those orders are just words on paper. They're meaningless. This is the court's fundamental attendance problem, and the legal system has developed a very specific toolkit to solve it. Now, the system doesn't just jump straight to the most extreme measures. It's built on a principle of escalation, right? It starts with a foundational step, a formal, official heads up that clearly states the court's expectations and, gives everyone the chance to comply voluntarily. And this first step is called a summons. This is the baseline for the entire process. It's the court's official way of putting you on notice and saying, hey, your presence is required. So let's be super clear. A summons is not a suggestion. It's a command. It lays out precisely where you need to be and when you need to be there. This is the legal system's first and most common tool for getting people into that courthouse. Okay, but here's where things start to get a lot more serious. What if someone just ignores the summons? Or what if the court has good reason to believe that they're going to ignore it? Well, the system needs a plan B, a much more forceful one. All right, let's dive into this because this is the court's power tool. This is when a warrant gets issued. A warrant takes things to a whole new level. It's no longer just an order for you to appear, it's an order for your arrest to ensure you appear. Now, according to the rules, a judge can issue a warrant in two very specific situations. First, if the court has a legitimate reason to believe you've already fled or have zero intention of obeying the summons. And second, much more simply, if you were properly served with that summons and you just don't show up. But here is a really interesting and important little phrase. The system has a check for fairness built right in. A warrant isn't automatic if you miss a court date. It's triggered when you fail to appear and you don't have a good reason. This is so crucial because it protects people who might have a legitimate crisis. A medical emergency, a major car accident, things like that. So, the key point here is that this power isn't unlimited. A judge can't just issue a warrant on a whim. The rules demand that they first see a valid reason, and then, this is critical, they have to record those reasons in writing before that warrant is issued. It's a really important safeguard against arbitrary power. But summons and warrants aren't the only tools in the kit. The system also has a way to handle a very specific scenario. What happens when the person the court needs to see again is already standing right there in front of them? This tool is called a bond, and its purpose is totally different. It's not about getting you to court for the first time. It's all about making sure you come back for the next time. So a bond is basically a formal binding contract you make with the court. You're promising you will show up at a future date. And sometimes this promise is secured with what the rule calls sureties, which you can think of as collateral, like putting up a certain amount of money to guarantee you'll be back. So just imagine this. You are physically in the courtroom. The judge needs to make sure you're going to be at the next hearing. So right then and there, the presiding officer can require you to execute a bond, making a formal, legally binding pledge to return. And that promise? It has serious teeth. If you are bound by that bond and you don't show up, the rules are crystal clear. The presiding officer can immediately issue a warrant for your arrest. In that moment, the trust has been broken and the system escalates right back to compulsion. So when you put all of these pieces together, you can see it's not just a random collection of rules. It's a carefully designed system that balances notification, trust, and, when necessary, force. And this table really lays out the logic of the entire system perfectly. It all starts with a simple notification, the summons. If that's ignored or the court thinks it will be, it escalates to force, with a warrant. And to manage future risk when someone's already there, it uses a promise, the bond. Each tool has a very specific job to make sure the legal process can actually move forward. And finally, it's important to remember that these procedures for issuing a summons or a warrant, they aren't just for one type of case. They apply broadly across the entire legal system. This is what ensures consistency and predictability. Everyone knows the rules of the game and the consequences for not playing by them. Ultimately, these procedural rules aren't just about logistics. They really reflect a much deeper tension. They are the mechanisms that try to strike a balance between the state's absolute need to administer justice and an individual's fundamental right to freedom. And that leaves us with a really critical question to consider.